Alright guys, welcome back to Project Good Speed. I'm Jay, and on today's video we are swapping out the transmission in the little Civic. Let's get started. Okay, welcome back to Project Good Speed. Today we're actually doing some mechanic work. Transmission is coming out today. Basically just take off the airbox, take off the battery, and then you just remove these harnesses that are in your way. And you want to be really careful because you guys can see I already broke that right there. And that's the second one I replaced because the other one that broke was that one right there. You guys can see this cable is a lot longer than it needs to be. This install is not exactly a direct replacement because this is a 5th gen Civic and the transmission we got was from a 6th gen Civic. More importantly, it is the LX version of a 99 Honda Civic. And I was just doing some research here and it turns out that the gear ratios for the DX for the 5th gen and the LX from the 6th gen are pretty much identical except for second gear. Second gear seems to be, I think it's a little longer, or the gear ratio is a little bigger on the 6th gen than it is on the 5th gen. I don't know how that means for power wise or drivetrain. I just wanted my car to drive normally. The problem is there's no second gear. I can't, it's completely gone now. Oh. Now, in this video, you guys will see my brother help me out with this. Very, very handy to have an extra set of hands. What are you gonna do? We're just gonna drop it.
Oh shit, but how are you gonna do it?
Hopes and dreams, dude. That's what this Honda runs on. After all of this stuff was removed, the very first thing we did is we're supposed to remove the casing bolts, which are the bolts that attach it to the engine. And there are a grand total of 1, 2, 3, 4 on this side, and then 1 right next to the transmission mount in the rear, which is a pain in the ass for me. Honestly, 2 of these bolts were really tough to get out. Hopefully you guys don't have to deal with that, but in any case, that's kind of what took us a long time. So after we removed the airbox, the battery, and the cables here, as well as the slave cylinder here, we just kind of removed that. Let me put that back on there. We just removed these 2 bolts here, and then the 2 brackets that hold it on there, just set it aside. Then we just jacked the car up and moved on to removing the axles. Now we just took off the axle nuts and then moved on to removing the lower ball joint castle nut. Oh, it's because you don't got the lubricant, dude. Because the knuckle has to come off for the axles to fully extend out. The hammer of negotiations. The axles. Kind of just move them out the way, really. Sorry, I don't understand. All the way. Is that mine or yours?
It's yours, man.
Stupid Siri, there's no G on my phone. And once all that stuff was removed, the transmission was ready to be removed from the mounts. And we also use a spare jack on my engine here. I just got the spare jack out of the Civic, just enough to keep it from dropping down totally. Just jack on some planks of wood, just to keep it from, moving. Now, I have the manual on my phone, which I use to reference all of this stuff, right? And unfortunately, it's not very, very specific. It didn't say anything about removing the starter, so, okay. After I was wheeling the transmission around trying to get it off for about an hour. I'm afraid of doing any more than this. I just decided to take the starter off and see what that did, and that was the issue, really. So the starter has to come off for the transmission to come off. That's my own dumbass fault. The other part is I did not read that there's a 5th bolt on the back right by the mount, and I'll show you guys a shot of it here. That one had to be removed with a extractor bolt. It was just not cooperating. It's like the bulk of the problems came from these stupid bolts that are for the casing. You see here, this one in the rear had to use an extractor bit. No good. This one in the front seems to have stripped. Hopefully the casing isn't on the block isn't stripped, but you guys can see here it's just gone. So far all we've done is remove all of this stuff in the way, battery, intake, and the sensors, right? I accidentally broke one of them, but no big deal. The clutch slave cylinder here, we just moved the side, 2 brackets there and then down there, and moved it right there. As of now, the only bolt holding the transmission is right here. Right here. 2 bolts holding this bracket here. 1, 2. Now in this video, I had an extra set of hands. It's always a good idea. You know, my brother helped me out and we were able to get this job done in a day. So once I removed the starter there and that 5th bolt in the back, I was able to go ahead and just drop it down gently.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna wiggle it and then you're gonna slowly let it down. Let it down a little bit. All right, it's up.
Once we got it down with the jack, we were just to lift it up just enough to remove the jack and drop the transmission on the floor and then slide it out. And raising the car up was just enough to get the transmission to fall out, really. And that was it. Once I got the transmission out, the install was pretty much the reverse, and it's pretty straightforward. And the only thing I needed was to go back to the junkyard to go pick up the right bolts, right? You see this one, like I said, this one is stripped. You see that? No thread on that. This one I did not want to risk putting back in there because the extractor bit damaged it, as well as my own, tools. So I went to the junkyard and picked up some from an automatic transmission, which were exactly the same. All right, it's hard finding a manual transmission at the junkyard. So one quick stop. I checked online. There's supposed to be a CRV here that came in a few days ago. It's a blue one supposed to have came in. I see it. I see it. And it's got a roof rack. Still there. Come on, baby. No! Fuck. So once I got the transmission out, we basically just inspected it to make sure the new one we were going to install was, at least, visibly good. Obviously, I don't know how to check the internals, and I'm not going to do that. So I just replaced all of the parts that I needed, which are just the OEM side mount, the top mount, and the actually that's it. I was thinking about replacing this throwout bearing, but I went ahead and just kept it. I just kind of lubricated it up a little and cleaned these axle seals, and that's it. The only thing that's different, obviously, is the mounting posts. You guys can see mine has a stud and a bolt, whereas this LX has 2 studs, which meant I needed to go back to the junkyard for 2 more bolts or nuts. But I managed to pick them up the same time I picked those up. These parts are now done, complete. Everything has been installed using OEM Honda parts, albeit not from the same year or model. But I got a 6th gen transmission, so less mileage, obviously. I mean, I hope, really. I don't know what the mileage on that is. And we just put everything back. We just put the axles back in there. Just careful not to damage anything. Put the axle nut back on there, torque those to spec, and bolted up all the accessories here, the clips. Got everything installed just the way it should be. And problems came up. Welcome to the land of more fucking problems. Look at this. That sounds exactly like that clanking I be hearing when I'm driving, and I'm over here thinking it's my shocks, but it's this lower control arm. Well, it looks like we're gonna need a new subframe, but you know what? I've been thinking about going power steering. So we got a power steering subframe in here, problem solved. I actually did an oil change, right? Because I've never added oil onto the Civic, like ever. I could not get the drain plug out of that one, no matter what I did. Used the funnel to make sure we got it on there correctly. It's about 1.9 quarts. For the first time since I've owned this Civic, I've actually installed OEM manual transmission fluid on here. So it should work like butter. And I swear, dude, if this transmission doesn't work, I'm gonna be more pissed about wasting my oil here. Shit ain't cheap, dude. All in all, not bad. Of course, we'll see if it still runs, or if it even works, really. Now, this is, what year is this? No, I know what the year of the car is. The transmission, fucking smart ass.
99?
99. So this is an EK transmission from, you said LX?
LX.
All right. Hopefully it fucking turns and shifts right, dude. Because if I don't have second gear again, I'm gonna be pissed. Transmission has been taken out. Everything's been installed. Unfortunately, I can't turn it on because somebody connected my battery the wrong way around and a fuse blown blue. And it's 10 o'clock, so buy a new one. And real quick, what's the over and under that this is broken? I don't know if you guys can see, but that shit's bruised bad, and I can't move my hand. Nothing but problems, honestly. Look at that. Look, it's already swollen up. And the subframe's fucked up. Oh, my life. It's all right. That is something I can fix. The bolt is not going anywhere, you know, so it's like, it's fine. I need the smog now. Damn, this hurts. So, this morning, I decided to take it for a spin. Just up and down my driveway. Just to make sure everything worked correctly, and let's see. Well, there's first. Bro, hear that? No grinding. Reverse works. First. There you have it. Now I won't have to worry about. Oh, damn. Stall pass. Fuck. It's the first time I've stalled in years. Here's first. With the handbrake down. So it is mobile. It does work. But let's see if second takes off. And what? Hold on, reverse. Reverse works. Forward. Look at that. No grinding whatsoever. Damn. Obviously I can't try, you know, fourth and fifth, but this is gonna look so much nicer when I'm driving down the road and you don't hear fuck. So all that's left to do now is I'm gonna solder up that last clip and call it a day because we're done. That's all we've got planned for today. The Civic is now ready to pass smog. After a full day of studying, we're ready to pass this test. All right, and the clip has been installed. I gotta admit, I did not expect this episode to go sort of smoothly, but to be honest, I am just more excited to have a working transmission ever in the lifetime that I've ever owned this Civic. I've never had second gear, so I've never been able to do a good pull, really. It's always just been first and maybe second, always into third. So just pretty much first, third. But you know, I've never done a job like this before. Replacing a transmission seems daunting and exhaustive, and it is very tiring. My clothes were just filthy, but it worked. The transmission checks out. That's right, boys. Haha, we finally made it. Check it out. We got one more month before they expire again, but we're good to go. The lady at the DMV saw the date that I paid the registration, and then she's like, yeah, oh, sorry, it's due again. And I'm like, what? And I totally forgot. September. I've got less than 1 month before it's due. Now look, it is a new transmission, but technically it's used. So what in one launch is it gonna hurt? I think that's the first time I've ever done that. You know, shifted a second without having to, you know, do all that. Damn. You know, this car just became like 100 times more fun. Oh man, I've missed this. Woo. Summer 2025. Still no interior. The little hatchback here now has a transmission that actually has a second gear and not a maybe second, you know? I usually have to be shifting from first to maybe second and then to third, but for the most part, I just go from first straight to third. Transmission swap, not that complicated, although it took a lot longer than I had planned, just because obviously I had to go to the junkyard back and forth multiple times. It is a hassle. Real quick, you guys will not believe what I picked up from one of my buddies. We've got some, they're not drag. They look like they're drag, but they're not drag. They are GSR Starfish rims for the little Civic here. And I got them just because it'll help with the fitment. Now that the transmission actually works, I'm gonna have to be worried about scraping more often, and I need something that fits better. These are OEM fitment, so I'm gonna get rid of these STR replicas or drag replicas that are just scraping my fender, and it's not a good fitment. The offset is just completely off. I will want to buy new tires eventually, but these are gonna go in the meantime. And after a little polish, I think they'll come out pretty nice. Not a lot of curb rash, well, some, but definitely a lot better than mine. I kind of neglected these after a while, and the fitment is just totally off. You see, every time I hit a pothole, it just ruins my ride. And now that we are ready to get back on the road, of course we have to address that subframe issue. I can't ignore that now. It's very dangerous. The only thing holding that lower control arm in place is that one bolt. But when that bolt gives way, because obviously it's not fastened down, it's just being like rattled in there. And that's making the lower control arm rattle, and if it eventually gives way, that's very dangerous. So I'm gonna limit the miles I put on this thing just long enough so that I can get the interior installed and everything back in the little hatchback so that I can move forward to the subframe, which will need to be replaced. But I just remembered, I don't know how I'm gonna get that freaking bolt out. I'm gonna have to slice it through because you guys saw me turning it. That was me trying to tighten it. So when I try to loosen it, it's gonna be the same fucking thing. Oh man. There's always a freaking problem with this little hatchback, But hey, that's what we signed up for. So until next time, guys, take care and good speed.